Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're the place where we dig into complex stories. Could be history, finance, ancient texts, you name it. And we really try to pull out the core insights for you.
That's right. And today, we are diving deep into a really powerful piece of ancient literature, Genesis chapter 39.
Yeah, this one's dense. Psychologically, spiritually, It's got a lot going on. We're following Joseph's story here.
A story that swings wildly, doesn't it?
Yeah.
From being betrayed and sold into slavery to showing this incredible integrity, only to face, well, completely unjust suffering right in the heart of ancient Egypt.
So our mission today, think of it like an excavation. We want to pull out the historical background you need, really explore Joseph's, well, frankly, his amazing psychological and spiritual strength.
And we can't ignore the family mess that looms in the background. We'll touch on chapter 38, too, because it sets a crucial stage, showing this kind of moral chaos Joseph came from.
Exactly. And then there's this huge layer, the foreshadowing, the typology, how Joseph's story points towards Jesus Christ. We want to connect all these ancient threads to the kind of challenges, you might face today.
And if you boil it all down, the absolute heart of Genesis 79, the thing you just can't miss, is that phrase repeated over and over, the Lord was with Joseph.
Right. It pops up like 4 times.
Yeah, and that phrase completely reframes everything. Prosperity isn't about being free or rich. It's defined by God's presence and Joseph's unwavering integrity, whether he's a slave or in prison. That internal measure of success, that's the key takeaway, I think.
Okay, let's set the scene then. Joseph gets sold, right?
Yeah.
By these traders, Midianites or Ishmaelites. The text varies slightly.
And he lands in Egypt.
Yeah.
Now, you got to understand, this isn't just moving down the road. We're talking Middle Bronze Age Egypt, roughly 2000 to 1700 BC. This is the global superpower.
So centralized government, massive wealth, complex society, strict hierarchy, the whole package.
Absolutely. And Egypt, in the Bible, it often plays this symbolic role, doesn't it? It represents worldly power, temptation, a place of spiritual testing. It's the big leagues.
And who buys him? A guy named Potiphar. The text gives him some pretty serious titles.
Very specific, high-ranking titles. An officer of Pharaoh, captain of the guard. Some translations even go with chief executioner.
Chief executioner. Wow. So this isn't some minor official. Joseph is immediately thrown into the inner circle of Pharaoh's elite. We're talking national security level stuff.
Precisely. The stakes are incredibly high right from the start. And think about the cultural whiplash for Joseph.
How so?
Well, Potiphar's name itself means something like devoted to the sun god, probably Ra. It links him directly to Egypt's polytheistic religion.
Okay, so Joseph, coming from this monotheistic background through Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, is now deep inside a household devoted to Egyptian gods. That's a huge clash.
A massive clash. He's in this powerful, religiously foreign, and let's be honest, likely morally looser environment. It just highlights his isolation, doesn't it?
And he's already carrying so much baggage. The betrayal by his brothers back in Genesis 37, that's the wound that starts it all.
Being thrown in a pit, stripped of that coat, his identity, really sold like an animal. That trauma is simmering beneath the surface.
So he arrives in Egypt completely alone. No family, no tribe for protection. He has to rely solely on, his own character and God's unseen help.
That's it. He has to build trust from absolute zero in a place that sees him as nothing more than property. His isolation is fundamental to the story.
And you mentioned the family he left behind. Jacob's household wasn't exactly stable, was it?
Stable. Far from it. It was deeply dysfunctional. You had jealousy, multiple wives, blatant favoritism towards Joseph, which fueled the brothers' hatred, intense rivalries.
So Joseph's story kind of pushes back against the idea that your family dictates your future.
I think so. It shows that while your beginnings shape you, they don't have to define your ultimate path, especially when you forge that direct connection with God, independent of your family's issues.
Okay, but let's circle back to chapter 38. The narrative takes this pause right before Joseph's big test in Potiphar's house. Why suddenly shift focus to his brother, Judah? It seems like such an interruption.
It feels like an interruption, but it's actually brilliant literary strategy. It's juxtaposition. It highlights just how exceptional Joseph's integrity is by showing us the moral mess happening back home.
What kind of mess are we talking about?
Oh, it's pretty bad. Judah's story involves serious moral failures. 2 of his sons do evil things and are struck down by God. Then Judah fails in his duty to his daughter-in-law, Tamar, by withholding his 3rd son.
And Tamar takes matters into her own hands, right?
She does, in a shocking way. She feels she has a right to continue the family line, so she disguises herself as a shrine prostitute and tricks Judah himself into getting her pregnant.
Wow. Okay, so lying, manipulation, sexual misconduct, right within the chosen family.
Exactly. It's not just a random detour in the story. The writer places it there deliberately to say, look at the moral vacuum Joseph came from, and then look at how he handles temptation in Egypt.
So it makes Joseph's stand in chapter 39 seem even more remarkable.
Absolutely. He's facing temptation not just against the backdrop of Egyptian culture, but also against the backdrop of his own family's serious failings. His integrity isn't just a personal choice. It's like a spiritual victory against this pervasive moral decay.
And stepping into Egypt, specifically as a foreign slave, his social standing is basically zero.
Rock bottom. He has no rights, no legal recourse, no one to vouch for him, which makes the power dynamic with Potiphar's wife incredibly dangerous.
She's an elite Egyptian woman.
Exactly. Her word, even if it's a complete lie fueled by lust or spite, carries immense weight against a Hebrew slave. If she accuses him, he's basically toast. Injustice is almost baked into the situation.
Okay, so he's betrayed, sold, isolated, powerless. It's a bleak picture. But then, as you said, that central theme kicks in immediately.
Right, the Lord was with Joseph. That's the engine driving everything. It's not just a nice sentiment. The text presents it as active divine intervention, turning this awful situation into, believe it or not, an opportunity.
How does that play out initially?
Well, the divine favor is so obvious, so potent, that Potiphar himself sees it. Remember, he's a high-ranking Egyptian worshiping Egyptian gods.
But he recognizes Joseph's success isn't just skill.
No, the text is specific. Potiphar noticed this and realized that the Lord was with Joseph, giving him success in everything he did. Potiphar attributes the success to Joseph's God.
That's pretty remarkable. And it leads to promotion, fast.
Very fast. Joseph goes from being just another slave to being the chief steward, the overseer of Potiphar's entire household, all his business affairs, everything.
So his competence, amplified by God's blessing, was just undeniable.
Undeniable. And look at the extent of the trust placed to him. This detail is crucial. From the day Joseph was put in charge, the Lord began to bless Potiphar for Joseph's sake.
Wait, so the blessing wasn't just on Joseph, it flowed through him to his Egyptian master.
Exactly. It's like a spiritual halo effect. God's favor on Joseph spilled over and tangibly benefited Potiphar's entire estate, his house, his fields, everything. That tells you something about the reach of God's blessing, doesn't it? It wasn't just confined to Joseph personally.
That's fascinating. It became an economic benefit for Potiphar.
To the point where Potiphar basically just checks out. The text famously says he had no worries because Joseph handled everything. Some translations put it vividly. Potiphar worried about nothing except the food he ate.
Imagine that. Giving a foreign slave that level of complete administrative control, it speaks volumes about Joseph, but also about how visible that divine blessing must have been. Potiphar couldn't ignore it.
Which brings us to a really important theological point, especially when you contrast it with some modern ideas.
You mean the idea of prosperity?
Precisely. Joseph is clearly prospering here. He's successful, effective, highly favored by God, but he's still a slave. He has no personal wealth, no freedom, no rights.
So this story directly challenges that kind of prosperity gospel thinking that says God's favor always equals material wealth and freedom.
Fundamentally challenges it. Joseph was incredibly prosperous while enslaved. His value, his success, it came from his relationship with God and his righteous actions, not his bank balance or legal status.
The circumstances were terrible.
Awful, but spiritually, professionally, he was elite because God was with him. It shows true prosperity is internal. It's about being aligned with God regardless of what's happening on the outside.
Okay, so Joseph is succeeding. He's got God's favor. Potiphar trusts him implicitly. But this very success seems to create a new kind of danger.
Yeah, it's almost ironic. His competence, his position, even his appearance, the text notes he was very handsome and well-built, makes him a target.
For Potiphar's wife?
For Potiphar's unnamed wife, yes. She becomes infatuated. It's a classic, almost archetypal scenario. The powerful, perhaps bored elite woman setting her sights on the attractive, vulnerable subordinate.
And she's direct about it. Sleep with me. Lie with me. It's a command, almost.
It is. And while similar stories exist in ancient literature, like that Egyptian tale of two brothers, Joseph's response is what makes this narrative uniquely powerful. It shifts from just a story to a moral and spiritual lesson.
He doesn't just say no. He explains why. It's like a two-part defense.
Exactly. He shows this incredible self-control rooted in conviction. First, he appeals to his loyalty to Potiphar.
The horizontal relationship.
Right. He says, essentially, look, my master trusts me with everything. He runs this whole place through me. The only thing he hasn't put under my authority is you, his wife. How could I possibly betray that trust? It would be a massive violation of his duty to the man who gave him this position.
That makes sense. Loyalty to his human master.
Right.
But then he takes it higher.
He elevates it completely. He shifts from the horizontal to the vertical. This is the absolute core of his refusal. How then can I do this great wickedness and sin against God?
Wow. So even if he could get away with it, even if Potiphar never found out.
It doesn't matter. For Joseph, the primary offense isn't against Potiphar, ultimately. It's against God. He recognizes sin for what it is, a transgression against the divine order, against holiness itself. That's real integrity, isn't it? Doing the right thing even when nobody is watching, because you know God is watching.
And this wasn't just a one-time thing, right? The pressure was constant.
Oh, the text emphasizes that. She kept putting pressure on him day after day. It was relentless pestering, constant temptation.
And Joseph's strategy was?
Avoidance. He refused not just to lie with her, but even to be with her. He understood the danger of proximity, of lingering too long near the source of temptation. He actively created distance.
That daily grind, that constant pressure. Some commentators see that as more than just human temptation.
Many interpret it as a form of spiritual warfare, like a targeted, persistent spiritual attack designed to break his character, to derail God's plan for him. It mirrors how spiritual opposition often works, not always a sudden onslaught, but sometimes a wearing down, a constant pressure.
So Joseph wasn't just fighting lust. He was fighting something deeper, unseen forces trying to trip him up.
That's a compelling reading. His refusal wasn't just good morals. It was a significant spiritual victory, achieved through sheer commitment to God over personal ease or desire.
And there's that fascinating linguistic detail about the Hebrew word for he refused, vayuman.
Yes, in verse 8. It's sometimes marked in the Torah scroll with a special cantillation mark called a shalshalit. It's incredibly rare, only used 4 times in the whole Torah.
And it signifies?
It usually indicates a moment of profound internal struggle, maybe hesitation or wavering before making a huge, difficult, but ultimately righteous choice.
So it suggests this wasn't an easy no for Joseph.
Think about the pressure. This powerful woman could ruin him. She desired him. Refusing her carried immense risk, prison, maybe even death. The shalshalit hints at that internal tension, that Joseph likely weighed the terrible potential consequences against God's command. He didn't just casually brush her off. He wrestled with it and chose righteousness, knowing the likely cost. That makes his decision even more heroic.
That internal battle then spills out into this final dramatic confrontation. Seems like a setup.
It does feel like a trap, doesn't it? Joseph goes into the house to do his work, and the text specifically says none of the household servants happen to be there. He's completely alone with her.
And she makes her move.
Grabs him, physically grabs his cloak, his outer garment, demanding he sleep with her.
And Joseph's response is immediate.
Instantaneous flight. He literally wrenches himself free, leaves the garment in her hand, and runs out of the house. That's the model for dealing with overwhelming temptation. Don't negotiate, don't argue, don't linger, flee, get out, physical separation.
But she now has the garment. Evidence.
Weaponized evidence. She immediately uses that cloak to spin her lie, first to the servants, then later repeating it to Potiphar himself. She claims he assaulted her.
He came in to lie with me, and I screamed.
And she twists it to blame Potiphar too, doesn't she?
Yeah, she adds that dig. See what this Hebrew slave you brought into our house has done. He came in here to insult us. Trying to make Potiphar feel responsible, maybe even shamed. This whole garment thing. It's a recurring theme for Joseph, isn't it?
Incredibly symbolic. This is the second time a garment of Joseph's is stripped from him and used as false evidence to inflict injustice.
The first being the coat of many colors.
Exactly. Dipped in goat's blood by his brothers to fake his death and deceive their father Jacob. That garment represented his identity, his father's favor.
And now this second garment, likely his steward's cloak, representing his achieved status and integrity, is used to destroy his reputation and nearly costs him his life. It's a bitter motif of innocence betrayed by lies and false appearances.
And the typological connection many draw is powerful. It points forward to Jesus being stripped of his robes at the crucifixion. His garments, symbolizing his dignity, were divided up by the soldiers. In both cases, you have the righteous sufferer stripped, humiliated with physical items used as part of their unjust condemnation.
So Potiphar hears his wife's story.
Yeah.
And he's furious. His wrath was kindled, the text says.
As you'd expect. But then comes the surprising part.
He doesn't kill Joseph.
He doesn't. Which, given his position as chief executioner and the severity of the alleged crime, a slave assaulting his master's wife, is actually quite remarkable. The expected penalty would likely be swift and brutal execution.
So why just prison? What did the sources suggest?
Well, many commentators think this relative leniency implies Potiphar had doubts. Maybe he knew his wife's character. Maybe he saw Joseph's consistent integrity up to that point. He was angry, yes, perhaps obligated to act publicly, but maybe not entirely convinced by her story.
Or maybe it's God's intervention again.
That's the theological reading. God is still working, even in Potiphar's anger, showing mercy by preserving Joseph's life. Potiphar throws him into the specific prison where the king's prisoners were confined. A royal prison, likely for political offenders or high-status criminals.
So Joseph hits rock bottom again, from trusted steward to prisoner, but the theme returns.
Instantly. Even in the darkness of the prison, the text reaffirms, "But the Lord was with Joseph." God didn't abandon him. He immediately showed him kindness, gave him favor, this time with the chief jailer.
And the same pattern repeats.
The exact same pattern. Just like in Potiphar's house, Joseph's competence and integrity shine through. The jailer quickly puts him in charge of all the other prisoners, the entire operation of the prison.
So the warden basically delegates everything to Joseph.
Completely. The text says the warden paid no attention to anything under Joseph's care because the Lord was with Joseph and gave him success in whatever he did. He saw that same divine blessing Potiphar had seen.
So prison isn't just punishment.
Many see it as refinement, a crucible, or even a womb for growth. Joseph's administrative skills, already impressive, are now being honed under the most extreme pressure and limitations. He's learning to manage resources and people in the toughest environment imaginable.
Preparation for something bigger.
Absolutely. God is using this time, this injustice, to equip him for his ultimate role, saving Egypt and his own family from famine. He's being prepared for national leadership in the dungeon.
Okay, let's pull back now and look at the different layers of meaning here. Genesis 39 is so much more than just a story. The typology, seeing Joseph as a prefiguration of Christ, is really striking.
The parallels are numerous and hard to ignore. You mentioned beloved sons, betrayed by their own people.
Joseph by his brothers, Jesus by Judas and the religious leaders, both sold for silver, 20 pieces for Joseph, 30 for Jesus.
Right. Then there's the integrity under temptation. Joseph resisting Potiphar's wife mirrors Christ resisting Satan in the wilderness. Both faced intense pressure to compromise their mission and sin, and both remained perfect.
And the suffering, both falsely accused, judged unjustly, humiliated publicly, despite complete innocence.
And crucially, their descent was the path to their exaltation. Joseph goes down to the pit, then prison, but rises to become second only to Pharaoh, the savior of the region. Jesus endures the cross, death, and burial, but is resurrected and exalted to the right hand of the Father, the savior of the world. The pattern is humiliation leading to glory, suffering leading to salvation.
Moving to the theology, this chapter screams God's sovereignty, doesn't it?
Absolutely. It's a masterclass in divine providence. God is weaving his purposes even through the worst of human actions, betrayal, lust, lies, injustice. Nothing happens outside of his ultimate control.
It feels like a preview of Romans 8.28. God works all things together for good.
It really does. The evil intentions of humans were actually used by God to get Joseph exactly where he needed to be to fulfill God's larger plan. And Joseph's unwavering integrity is the model for how we should respond. Faithfulness isn't optional, and it holds firm even when no one's looking and there's no immediate reward.
From a psychological angle, Joseph's resilience is just astounding.
Isn't it? Think about the repeated trauma. The pit, the sale, the slavery, the false accusation, the imprisonment. Yet we see no hint of bitterness, no crippling despair, no desire for revenge later on. He just keeps functioning, excelling even.
How does he do that?
It points to what psychologists might call a very strong internal locus of control. His sense of self-worth, his purpose, it wasn't tied to his external circumstances, whether he was favored son, slave, or prisoner. It was anchored internally in his relationship with God. That's what gave him the strength to not just survive, but lead, even in chains. It's a powerful model for mental toughness.
And there's a definite social critique embedded in the story, too.
Oh, absolutely. It's a stark depiction of the abuse of power. Potiphar's wife uses her status, her privilege, her gender in that context to try and coerce a powerless subordinate. And when refused, she uses that same power to destroy him with a lie.
And her word is automatically believed over his.
Precisely because he's a foreigner, a slave, marginalized. It highlights the vulnerability of the innocent when caught in unjust systems where power dynamics dictate truth. It resonates even today, showing how those without systemic power can be victimized by those with privilege. Joseph's response is endurance and trust in ultimate divine justice.
Which connects directly to the modern relevance. This isn't just an ancient story.
Not at all. Joseph's integrity in a hostile, morally compromised workplace that speaks directly to ethical challenges people face today. Pressure to cut corners, engage in unethical practices, navigate office politics.
And the specific scenario, the sexual harassment, the false accusation.
It's incredibly relevant. It touches on workplace harassment, the devastating impact of false accusations, sort of an ancient precursor to cancel culture dynamics, and the tough choices people face regarding moral compromise for advancement or even just survival. Joseph's strategy, flee, don't negotiate with sin, remains timeless advice.
And his overall journey encourages perseverance.
You're right.
Trusting God even when things look bleak for a long time.
Yes, trusting that God is present and working towards ultimate justice,
Right.
even when you're stuck in your own metaphorical prison, seemingly forgotten with no vindication in sight.
We talked about the garment motif earlier. Are there other strong metaphors or allegories at play here?
Well, you can see Potiphar's house as representing the allure of the world. It offers comfort, status, prosperity, but it's also filled with hidden dangers and temptations that can compromise your soul.
And the prison.
The prison, paradoxically, becomes this place of deep spiritual formation. It's where the superficial is stripped away, it's uncomfortable, it's unjust, but it's where God does some of his deepest work, forging character, teaching dependence, preparing Joseph for the immense responsibility to come. The descent into the prison was actually the necessary pathway to the palace. He had to go down to eventually go up.
So, wrapping up Genesis 39, it's far more than just a sad story about a good guy having bad luck.
Oh, much more. It's this profound unveiling of God's sovereign hand, even in the midst of terrible suffering. And it's a testament to the sheer power of unwavering integrity.
What people meant for evil.
God intended for good. Joseph himself says that later to his brothers in Genesis 50. He saw the bigger picture. His suffering had a redemptive purpose.
He models that act of trust, serving faithfully even when things seemed hopeless. He had to prove trustworthy in the small, hidden places, Potiphar's house, the prison, before being given charge over a whole nation.
Exactly. Diligence in the darkness prepares you for leadership in the light.
Okay, that leads perfectly into our final thought for you, the listener, to really mull over. Consider Joseph's whole trajectory up to this point. Favored son, thrown down into a pit, elevated slightly as a slave, then falsely accused and thrown down into prison. It's this constant movement, down, down, down.
And that downward movement isn't just incidental, it's deeply metaphorical. Think about it like building a strong foundation or like a tree growing roots. A seed has to send roots down deep into the earth, fighting through the hard soil before it can grow up tall and strong enough to withstand the storms.
So God used Joseph's descent, his humiliation, his suffering.
Exactly, to build this incredibly deep root system of character, faith, and resilience, so that when God finally did exalt him, raise him up to be prime minister, second only to Pharaoh, he was unshakable. He wouldn't be corrupted by power, he wouldn't be swayed by pressure, he wouldn't forget his God. His roots were too deep.
Which really challenges us, doesn't it? We instinctively resist those times of going down in our own lives, the setbacks, the trials, the humiliations.
They fight it tooth and nail, but maybe, just maybe, those are the very times God is digging deep, building that unseen root system, forging the kind of strength that can only be found in the hard soil of adversity. Perhaps the greatest strength is built not in the ascent, but in the descent. Something to think about.